Daniel Parker woke up long before the alarm rang. It was still dark outside, and Chicago's winter wind pushed against the windows of his small apartment. The heater made a soft humming sound, but it did little to warm the heavy feeling in his chest. He turned on the bedside lamp. Beside him, his wife Laura was lying quietly, her breathing slow and weak. She had been sick for months, and every day felt like a battle, one she was slowly losing. Before her illness, Laura had been the kind of woman who filled every room with energy. She loved baking cookies for the neighbors, going out for evening walks near the Chicago River, and planning weekend road trips. But now, just sitting up in bed was difficult. Daniel got out of bed and walked to the kitchen, his steps heavy and tired. He hadn't slept properly in weeks. Every sound Laura made during the night pulled him awake. Her cough, her soft cries from pain, her struggle to breathe. He brewed a cup of warm chamomile tea, the same tea Laura always loved. As the steam rose, Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, wishing life could return to how it used to be. When he entered the bedroom again, Laura slowly opened her eyes. "Hey," she whispered, forcing a small smile. "Good morning," Daniel said softly. "I brought your tea." She tried to sit up, and Daniel quickly helped her, putting a pillow behind her back. "Thank you," she said, her voice fragile. Daniel sat beside her, holding the warm cup while she took small sips. "You okay?" he asked gently. Laura looked at him with tired eyes, but still full of love. "I'm trying," she answered. "But it's getting harder." Daniel swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know. I'm here. I won't leave you. Not for a moment." Laura rested her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing," she whispered. Daniel's heart broke at her words. He kissed the top of her head. "You're not disappearing. You're right here. And I'm with you." Outside, the city was waking up. Cars starting, people rushing to work, life moving forward. But inside the small apartment, time felt frozen. Every minute with Laura had become precious, and Daniel didn't know how many minutes were left. Later that afternoon, the apartment was filled with a soft silence. The kind of silence that comes when people are scared to say the wrong thing, scared to disturb the tension in the air. Daniel paced slowly from the living room to the kitchen, glancing at the clock again and again. The doctor was supposed to arrive any minute. Laura lay in bed, her eyes half closed. She wasn't sleeping. She didn't sleep much anymore. She was simply resting, saving what little energy she had. "Is he coming soon?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Daniel said, forcing calmness into his voice. "Dr. Harris is on his way." Laura nodded. "He's a good doctor. I just hope he brings good news." Daniel wished he believed that. But deep inside, a cold fear twisted in his stomach. Every visit from the doctor in the last 2 months had carried more warnings, more medicines, more sighs that a soft knock came at the door. Daniel opened it quickly. "Good afternoon, Daniel," Dr. Harris said, stepping inside with his small medical bag. He was a tall man in his mid-50s, with gentle eyes and a voice that made people feel safe, even when the news was bad. "Thanks for coming," Daniel said. "Of course." "How is she today?" Dr. Harris asked. Daniel hesitated. "Tired. More than usual." The doctor nodded and walked to the bedroom. When Laura saw him, she smiled faintly. "Hi, doctor. I'm still here." Dr. Harris sat beside her. "And I'm very glad you are." He checked her pulse, listened to her breathing, asked her a few questions. Laura answered as best she could, though sometimes her voice faded before the sentence finished. After a few minutes, Dr. Harris gently lowered his stethoscope. "Laura," he said softly, "I need to be honest with you." Daniel felt his heart stop. The doctor continued, choosing his words carefully. "The treatment isn't helping as much as we hoped. Your body is getting weaker. We can try a stronger medicine, but it will also make you more tired." Laura took a slow breath. "So, this is getting worse?" Dr. Harris nodded. "Yes, but we're not giving up. We can still manage the pain and help you stay comfortable." Daniel stepped closer, unable to hide the worry on his face. "How much time do we have?" The doctor looked at him, then at Laura. "It's hard to say. Weeks, maybe months. Not years." Silence fell hard on the room. Laura closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "I knew it." Daniel sat on the bed and took her hand, his fingers trembling. "We'll fight this," he said, his voice breaking. "Doctor." Harris placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You're doing everything right. What she needs most now is your love and your presence." Laura squeezed Daniel's hand with what little strength she had. I'm not scared of dying, she said softly. I'm scared of leaving you. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. You're not leaving me, he whispered. Not yet. Not today. Outside, snow began to fall slowly over Chicago, covering the city in a quiet white blanket. While inside the small apartment, Daniel and Laura faced a truth neither wanted to accept. That evening, the apartment felt heavier than usual. The doctor had left, the snow outside had stopped, and the only sound was the gentle ticking of the small clock on the wall. Daniel sat beside Laura on the bed, still holding her hand. He felt like if he let go, she might disappear. Daniel, she whispered softly, help me sit in the living room, just for a little while. I want to feel normal again. He hesitated. Are you sure? You're tired. I don't want to spend my whole life in this room, she said, trying to smile. Just a few minutes. Daniel nodded and carefully lifted her into his arms. She felt too light, like someone who had lost not just weight, but pieces of life itself. He carried her slowly to the living room and placed her gently on the couch, wrapping a warm blanket around her. The room was small but cozy. On the wall were photos from happier years, their trip to California, their first anniversary in New York, the day they brought home their dog, Max, who had passed away 2 years ago. Life had once been full of excitement, movement, laughter. Laura looked around slowly, her eyes lingering on each picture. We were happy, she said softly. We are happy, Daniel replied. We still have each other. Laura leaned her head against the couch. Do you remember this one? She pointed to a picture of them standing on a beach at sunset, both smiling, sand between their toes. Daniel chuckled quietly. How could I forget? You made me run into freezing water. You screamed louder than the waves, she said, laughing weakly. The laugh turned into a small cough, and Daniel immediately touched her back, helping her breathe. I'm okay, she whispered after a moment. I miss that version of us. Daniel sat beside her and wrapped his arm around her shoulders. That version is still here, he said. Just quieter. Laura closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his arm. I don't want your life to become all about taking care of me, she said suddenly. You deserve more. It's not about what I deserve, Daniel said firmly. It's about who I love. Laura looked at him with eyes full of softness and sadness. You've always loved me more than I love myself, she whispered. Snow began to fall again outside, the flakes drifting down like slow-motion confetti. The streetlights gave the room a soft golden glow. Daniel held her closer, feeling her weakness, her fragility, her breathing that came too slowly. I don't know how many days I have left, Laura said quietly, but I want to use them right. Daniel kissed her forehead. Then tell me, he said. What do you want? She stared at the photo wall again, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to make one last memory with you, something beautiful. Daniel swallowed hard, nodding. Then we will, he said. Whatever it is, we'll do it. For the first time in weeks, Laura's eyes shone with a small spark of hope. Tiny, fragile, but real. The next morning, soft winter light entered through the curtains, painting the bedroom in pale gold. Daniel woke up to the sound of Laura coughing quietly. He rushed to her side, helping her sit up and offering water. I'm okay, she whispered, breathing slowly. Just needed a moment. Daniel sat beside her. You said last night you wanted to make one last memory. I've been thinking, what do you want to do, Laura? Anything. She looked at him with tired but determined eyes. I want to see Lake Michigan again, she said softly. Just once more. I want to feel the cold wind, hear the water, and watch the waves. We used to go there almost every weekend. Daniel froze for a second. The lake was only a short drive away, but the winter air was sharp and freezing. Her body was too weak. He didn't want to risk it. Laura, it's really cold out there. Your lungs. She reached for his hand, her fingers cold but steady. I know it's risky, but I don't want to leave this world without seeing it again. Please. Daniel looked into her eyes. They were full of sadness, but also full of life. Whatever was left of it, he finally nodded. Okay, we'll go today. I'll bundle you up, and we'll stay in the car if it's too cold. But we'll go. Laura smiled softly, a real smile, the first he had seen in weeks. Thank you, she whispered. It means everything to me. Preparing for the trip, it took almost an hour to get her ready. Daniel moved slowly, carefully helping her into warm layers. A soft sweater, her thick winter coat, a scarf. gloves, a wool hat. Laura sat on the edge of the bed, breathing heavily between each step. "You okay?" Daniel asked, worried. "Yes," she whispered. "Just slow." Daniel helped her into the wheelchair they kept for emergencies. He wrapped a blanket around her legs and gently pushed her out toward the car. Each movement seemed to take all of her strength. Outside, the cold Chicago air hit them instantly. Laura closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, as if she had been waiting for that breath for a long time. "It smells like winter," she said quietly. "I missed this." Daniel lifted her into the car, placing pillows behind her back to keep her comfortable. He closed the door carefully, walked around to the driver's side, and sat down. "You ready?" he asked. Laura turned her head toward him. More than ever. The drive as Daniel drove toward the lake. The city passed slowly outside the windows. Snow-covered sidewalks, busy coffee shops, people rushing across the streets. It was the same city they had lived in for years, but today it all felt different. Today felt like a goodbye. Laura watched everything with quiet attention, as if each building, each street, each passing tree was something she needed to memorize. "This city gave us a lot," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "And you gave me more than the city ever could." Laura reached out and touched his arm lightly. "Thank you for doing this." Daniel swallowed. "I'd do anything for you." The lake was coming into view in the distance. Vast, gray, and endless. Laura's eyes filled with tears. "There it is," she whispered. "My last wish." When they arrived at Lake Michigan, the world felt quiet, almost too quiet. The sky was a soft gray, heavy with winter clouds, and the waves moved slowly, as if the lake understood it needed to be gentle today. Daniel parked the car facing the water. "Do you want me to move closer?" he asked softly. "This is perfect," Laura whispered. He leaned the seat back slightly so she could see comfortably, then tucked the blanket around her again. Her face looked pale under the winter light, but her eyes were alive, brighter than they had been in weeks. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the waves rise and fall. "It's beautiful," she said finally, her voice full of emotion. "Do you hear it? The water sounds like it's breathing." Daniel nodded. "It sounds calm today." Laura smiled. "Do you remember when the waves were so strong you got soaked trying to take a picture?" Daniel laughed softly. "Of course. You laughed at me for 20 minutes. You looked like a wet puppy," she said, giggling weakly. The giggle faded into a cough, and Daniel immediately placed his hand on her back. "I'm okay," she whispered after a moment. "I just got excited." Daniel looked at her, his eyes soft. "I like when you get excited," he said. "I miss hearing you laugh." Laura's eyes grew distant as she continued watching the lake. "You know, this is where we talked about our future. Kids, traveling, growing old together." Daniel felt a sharp pain in his chest. "We still grew older together," he said. "Not as long as we hoped, but we did." Laura's voice softened. "You made my life beautiful, Daniel." He shook his head gently. "You made mine worth living." A moment of truth. Laura's breathing grew slower, more shallow. Daniel noticed it immediately. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "Just tired. Can we stay a little longer?" "As long as you want." Laura reached for his hand. Her fingers were cold, but she held on tightly. "Daniel, can I tell you something?" "Of course," he said, squeezing her hand. She took a shaky breath. "When I die, promise me you'll forgive yourself." Daniel frowned. "Forgive myself for what?" "For not being able to save me," she whispered. "I know you feel that, but it's not your fault. It was never your fault." His throat tightened. "Laura, don't talk like..." "Please," she said softly. "Let me finish. You gave me everything. You love me perfectly. I don't want you to hate yourself when I'm gone." Daniel wiped tears from his eyes. "I'll never hate myself. I'll just miss you." Laura rested her head gently against the car window, watching the endless lake. "That's enough for me," she whispered. Point one last gift. A flock of birds suddenly flew over the water, moving gracefully through the sky. Laura's eyes lit up. "Oh, Daniel, look." He looked with her, watching the birds glide in perfect formation, as if the sky itself were performing for her. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you for bringing me here. This is the last memory I wanted." Daniel leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "I'm glad you got to see it," he whispered. "I'm glad I was with you." Laura closed her eyes, still smiling. "I'm glad you always were." The waves, the birds, the cold air, Everything around them felt like a quiet farewell. The drive back home was quiet. Too quiet. Laura rested with her eyes closed, her breathing soft and uneven. Daniel checked on her again and again, terrified she might stop breathing while he wasn't looking. When they finally reached the apartment, the sun had already disappeared behind the Chicago skyline. The sky was dark blue, and the city lights reflected off the snowy streets like tiny stars. Daniel carried Laura inside, holding her close to his chest. She felt lighter than ever, almost weightless. He laid her gently on the bed, fixed the pillows behind her, and pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked softly. Laura nodded weakly. "That trip, it took a lot of energy," she whispered. "But it was worth it." Daniel sat beside her. "You looked happy. I haven't seen your eyes shine like that in a long time." She smiled faintly. "It was the last beautiful thing I wanted to see." Daniel felt his heart twist painfully. "Don't say last," he whispered. Laura touched his cheek gently. "Daniel, you have to let me talk. I need to." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. That a confession of fear. Laura took a deep breath, slow and shaky. "Tonight, I feel different." Daniel froze. "What do you mean different?" She looked directly into his eyes. "My body feels tired in a new way, like it's shutting down. I don't want to scare you, but I think I'm close." Daniel shook his head instantly. No, you're just exhausted from the trip. You need rest." "I hope you're right," she whispered. "But Daniel, I need you to prepare yourself." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "How can I prepare for losing you?" Laura's voice broke softly. "By knowing that I'm not afraid anymore." Daniel leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "I'm afraid enough for both of us." Laura closed her eyes. "I know, and that's why I love you." A night of memories. They spent the rest of the evening talking softly, wrapped in the warm glow of the bedside lamp. "Do you remember our first date?" Laura asked. Daniel sniffed, wiping his tears. "You spilled coffee all over your new dress." She laughed quietly. "And you pretended it was modern art." Daniel chuckled. "It made you smile." "You were always making me smile." Daniel leaned back in the chair beside her bed. "If I could take your place, even for one day, I would." Laura shook her head gently. "I wouldn't let you. I'd rather spend one short life with you than a long life without you." Daniel felt tears fall again. "Laura, don't go." She reached out her hand. "Come lie with me." He climbed into the bed carefully, wrapping his arms around her delicate frame. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "This is my favorite sound," she whispered. Daniel kissed the top of her head. "And this, holding you, is my favorite place." A heavy stillness. Hours passed. The room grew darker. The clock ticked slowly. Laura's breathing became softer, slower. Daniel felt her grip weaken. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice barely there. "Yes?" "Promise me something. Anything. When I close my eyes, stay with me. Don't leave." Daniel's voice cracked. "I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not ever." Laura gave a tiny nod and closed her eyes, her face peaceful but strangely distant. Daniel held her tightly, listening to her breathing, terrified of the moment it might stop. The night was long, heavy, and unbearably quiet. And somewhere deep inside, Daniel knew this might be the last night he would ever hear her breathe. The sky outside the apartment slowly shifted from deep midnight blue to the pale gray of early morning. But inside the bedroom, time felt frozen. Daniel hadn't slept, not even for a second. He kept his arm around Laura, feeling every rise and fall of her fragile breath. Around 5 a.m., Laura stirred slightly. "Daniel," she whispered. "I'm here," he said immediately, tightening his hold around her. She opened her eyes just a little. They looked softer than ever, like a candle flame burning low. "Is it morning?" "Yes," Daniel whispered. "The sun will rise soon." Laura smiled faintly. "I want to see it." Daniel carefully sat up, trying not to jostle her weak body. He helped her lean against the pillows, then opened the curtains. The city outside was covered in a gentle layer of snow, glowing under the early light. Laura watched the sky slowly brighten. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand. "You're beautiful," he whispered. Laura gave a tiny laugh, barely more than a breath. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Her last words. Laura looked at him for a long moment, as if memorizing his face. "Daniel, can I tell you something important?" You can tell me anything." Her voice trembled softly. "I'm not afraid anymore. Not of pain, not of dying. The only thing I ever feared was leaving you alone." Daniel's heart twisted. "You're not leaving me," he said quickly, his voice breaking. She squeezed his hand gently, her grip weaker than ever. "You gave me a life full of love. I want you to remember that, not the sickness." Daniel wiped tears from his cheeks. "I'll remember everything," he whispered. "Every laugh, every fight, every moment." Laura gave a slow nod, her eyes growing heavy. "Thank you for loving me the way you did." "I'll love you forever," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "You're my whole world." Laura tried to respond, but instead she took a slow, deep breath. Her eyes drifted to the window once more, watching the sun rise over Chicago. Then she whispered, "Promise me, you'll live." Daniel broke down. "I promise," he managed to say. Laura closed her eyes. The moment everything changed, Daniel waited for her next breath. 1 second passed. Then another. Then another. His heart began to pound painfully in his chest. "Laura?" No response. That he touched her cheek. It felt still. Too still. "Laura, please. Open your eyes." Silence. Not a single breath. Not a single sound. The world stopped. Daniel collapsed over her, sobbing into her shoulder. "No. No, please. Please don't go. Laura, come back. Come back to me." But Laura didn't move. She didn't respond. Her body rested gently in his arms, peaceful and quiet. Laura Parker had taken her final breath. The sunrise outside the window. The sun rose higher, casting a warm golden light across the room. It illuminated Laura's face, making her look like she was sleeping, beautiful, calm, untouched by pain. Daniel held her close, tears falling onto her blanket, whispering her name again and again. The sunrise she wanted to see was the last sunrise she would ever watch, and the first sunrise Daniel would face without her. The apartment felt different after Laura's last breath. That it felt too quiet, too still, too empty. Daniel sat beside her for a long time, minutes, maybe hours. He couldn't tell. Time had lost all meaning. He held her hand even though it had turned cold, brushing her hair softly, hoping somehow she would open her eyes again. But she didn't. At some point, when the sun was fully up, he forced himself to stand. His legs were shaking. His chest felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on him with every breath. He reached for his phone and dialed Dr. Harris. When the doctor heard Daniel's voice, he didn't ask questions. "I'm coming," he said quietly. Daniel put the phone down, then walked back to the bedroom doorway. He looked at Laura one more time. Peaceful, calm, almost glowing in the morning light. "It isn't real," he whispered to himself. "It can't be real." But it was. The doctor arrives. When Dr. Harris arrived, he walked in with gentle steps, as if afraid to disturb the air. He approached Daniel and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. Daniel nodded numbly. "I tried. I stayed all night. But she just..." His voice cracked into pieces. "You were with her," the doctor said. "That's all she needed." Dr. Harris examined Laura quietly, respectfully. Then he covered her with the blanket up to her chest. "She passed peacefully," he said. "No pain." Daniel sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. "I wish I could have stopped it," he whispered. The doctor shook his head. "You gave her love. That's more powerful than any medicine I could ever prescribe." The hardest goodbye. When the funeral home staff arrived, Daniel felt his body freeze. He couldn't watch them take her. He stood in the hallway, hands shaking, as two gentle voices said, "We're very sorry for your loss," and began preparing her. Daniel closed his eyes tightly when he heard the soft sounds of them lifting her. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. When they carried her body toward the door, Daniel stepped forward, unable to stop himself. "Wait." They paused. Daniel walked to Laura's side, touched her blanket, and whispered, "I'll see you again. I promise." Then she was gone. The door closed, and the apartment, the home they had built together, felt like a hollow shell. A life without her. For the first time in years, Daniel was alone. He walked around the apartment slowly, like a visitor in someone else's home. Every corner held a memory. The couch where she watched movies, the kitchen where she baked cookies on Sundays, the balcony where they drank coffee together, the photos on the wall showing a life full of love. Daniel touched one of the photos. Laura laughing at the beach, his vision blurred with tears. "How do I live in a place where you no longer exist?" he whispered. The collapse he sat on the living room floor, leaning against the couch. His hands covered his face. And for the first time since she died, he let himself fall apart completely. He cried until his chest ached. He cried until he couldn't breathe. He cried until there were no tears left, but the pain stayed, deep, heavy, unbearable. The world outside kept moving. Cars passing, people walking, life continuing. But inside the apartment, Daniel's life had stopped. His other half was gone. His home felt broken. His heart felt shattered beyond repair, and he didn't know if he would ever be whole again. In America, there is a popular saying, "You become like the people you spend the most time with." And this is true everywhere in the world. When you surround yourself with negative, lazy, or unmotivated people, you slowly become like them. But when you surround yourself with ambitious, positive, disciplined, and successful people, your mindset automatically rises. In this part, let's explore how choosing the right circle can dramatically increase your value in life. White medium star 1. Your environment shapes your mind. Imagine you spend every day with people who complain about life, blame others, and make excuses. Slowly, you begin to think the same way. But if your friends talk about goals, share new ideas, encourage you, push you to improve, you grow without even realizing it. White medium star 2. Learn from people better than you. The fastest way to level up is to spend time with people who know more than you, have more experience, think differently, challenge you to grow. In the USA, many successful people say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Stay around people who make you learn. White medium star 3. Cut negative influences. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to fight. Just quietly distance yourself from people who gossip, discourage your dreams, waste your time, bring drama, complain, but never change. This simple move increases your value instantly. White medium star 4. Build a growth circle. Create a small group of people who want to grow together, share goals, habits, and progress, support each other. Even online communities can help. English learning groups, entrepreneur forums, fitness groups, self-development communities. Surrounding yourself with growth-focused people changes everything. White medium star 5. Your circle is your future. If you want to know where your life will be in 5 years, look at the people around you today. Choose wisely, because your circle decides your mindset, and your mindset decides your value. High-value people are constantly improving, reading and learning new skills, exercising and taking care of their body, practicing self-discipline, reflecting on mistakes, and growing every day is an opportunity to get better than yesterday. Point 2. Add value to others. Being valuable isn't about money or status. It's about what you give to others. You can add value by helping someone solve a problem, sharing knowledge or skills, motivating and inspiring people, being kind and respectful. When you help others succeed, your own value naturally rises. Point 3. Control your emotions. High-value people stay calm under pressure. They don't let anger, fear, or envy control them. Emotional control allows you to think clearly, make better decisions, and gain respect. Point 4. Master communication. Strong communication skills increase your value in every area of life. Speak clearly and confidently. Listen more than you talk. Ask questions that show interest. Avoid gossip and negativity. Good communication builds trust and influence. Point 5. Set boundaries. High-value people protect their time, energy, and emotions. Say no to distractions, toxic people, and unnecessary drama. Say yes to opportunities that align with your goals. Point 6. Take responsibility. Stop blaming others for your life. High-value people take full responsibility for their actions, choices, and results. Responsibility equals respect plus trust. Point 7. Invest in yourself. Your time, money, and energy should go to things that grow your mind, skills, and network. Education, experiences, fitness, and personal growth are the best investments you can make. Final words. Becoming high value is a journey, not a destination. Every step you take to grow, help others, and stay disciplined increases your confidence, respect, and success. Remember, surround yourself with high-value people. Remove negativity from your life. Focus on growing yourself daily. This is how you increase your value in life and why people will naturally respect, admire, and trust you.